Hi there, my name is Danae Como, and today I will be presenting on substance abuse in middle childhood. Thank you in advance for watching. So to start out, we should define substance abuse. So substance abuse can be defined as a pattern of harmful use of any substance for mood-altering purposes. And there are many substances that can be abused, and I will go over a few of them during this presentation. So for substance use, statistics show that substance abuse is a greater threat to the health of adolescents. However, research suggests that the most persistent drug use and abuse begins in middle childhood. So the first substance I'm going to talk about right now is alcohol. So for alcohol, in a research study, a sample of students showed that 6.5% of 6th graders and 19.6% of 8th graders reported to have drank in the past 30 days. Studies also show that early drinking habits can lead to an increased risk in adolescence, and it's associated with later substance abuse and delinquent problems. So if you start drinking earlier as a child, you're more likely to have it worse in adolescence, drink heavier in adolescence, and that leads to alcoholism as an adult. So there are some factors that may lead to childhood drinking. The first being having friends who drink and having parents who drink. Mainly, alcohol being in a child's social circle, they are around it more often. They become accustomed to it. They think it's normal that people are drinking all the time. Um, Children may engage in antisocial behavior, and that may lead them to drink. Also, having parents who don't disapprove of drinking or who don't monitor their child's actions, that can lead to drinking. And then this last one, it's really important, and that is they have high expectations of drinking and being drunk. And what I mean by this is how drinking and being drunk is represented in the media, and on social media, on TV, on movies. Drinking and being drunk is represented and portrayed as a really fun, crazy, cathartic experience that you get to have with your best buddies, and it's a wild night and it's just such a great fun time. And that tells children that drinking is fun, and so they take that. They think, well, they're having fun and I want to have fun, and so I'm going to drink. And so that's a problem for a whole other presentation, but media has to be really careful on how they represent things because children are very susceptible and easily influenced. There are also some personality factors that point to early drinking. A few of them include impulsivity, lack of control, and childhood aggression. And so what does childhood drinking affect someone? So it can cause poor physical health, it can cause poor mental health, depression, anxiety, other substance abuse related disorders. It can cause low grades in school. They may be, skipping school, not doing their homework, not paying attention in class, which results in low grades, which can result in failure or them being held back. And then it can also lead to low aspirations. They're not motivated. They don't have dream jobs. They're just wasting away drinking too much. And then it can also lead to antisocial behavior and or delinquency. So they're more likely to start breaking the rules, start breaking the laws, seeing how far they can push their limits. And so there are also some physical and psychological consequences of early alcohol intake. For physical, a few of them are liver disease, cancer, cardiovascular disease, and neurological damage. And these are just a few of the consequences that can come from drinking at an early age. For psychological, like I mentioned before, it can lead to depression anxiety, antisocial personality disorder, and addiction. And like I said before, this is just a small list of consequences that can come. And so now I want to move on to the next substance, and that is cigarettes and cigarette smoking. So there are studies of cigarettes in middle childhood. So they find that the first initiation of smoking seems to occur between the 7th and 9th grade, and they consistently find that the younger the age a teen begins to smoke regularly, the more they are to be a regular and heavy smoker and become nicotine dependent. So simply put, the earlier you start consistently smoking, you're more likely to become a heavy chain smoker. So now I want to talk about the smoking rates over time. As we know, back in the day, there wasn't really a lot of regulations on cigarettes. A lot of teens smoked, but smoking rates started to decline in 1996 among adolescents. And that's because they increased the cost of cigarettes, the prohibition of adolescent target advertising, and there were a lot more anti-smoking messages. And that got adolescents and middle-aged children to learn about what they were putting in their body and how it was really damaging and can lead to death and all these other awful things. Unfortunately, and however, there has been a rise in the use of e-cigarettes among adolescents and middle school children in the past few years. And the main thing I want to point out about that is that young people who use e-cigarettes may be more likely to smoke real cigarettes in the future. And e-cigarettes have become really popular because, they're flavored. They're advertised as safer, not as damaging. It doesn't have all the chemicals, which is really false advertisement because studies have found and have come out that that is just completely untrue, and vaping can cause serious damage. So there are health risks that come with smoking, some being increased respiratory infections, lessened lung capacity. They're putting all these smoky chemicals into their lungs and not all of it is going out. And so your lungs get worse. You can't hold your breath as longer. Your stamina decreases. You can't take big, deep breaths because your lungs are struggling so hard because they're covered in disgusting black, gooey tar and chemicals. And so this can lead to permanent lung damage. Smoking cigarettes can also lead to throat and lung cancer. And then it also delays and stunts physical development in younger children, which is really bad because children are constantly developing. Even adults in their 20s, people are still developing. And so it's hard to imagine what it's doing to children who are actively, constantly developing. So now I want to talk about some other drugs. And the first one includes marijuana. It is also known as weed or pot. It has a lot of other slang names, but it is mainly and scientifically known as marijuana. So after alcohol and cigarettes, marijuana is the next most frequently used drug among middle childhood and adolescents. National surveys show that 6.6% of 8th graders have used weed in the last 30 days. So effects of marijuana that can be caused because of early use is school failure. Kids are lazy. They don't want to do work. They start slacking off. So they start failing school. They start failing classes. Their grades start to drop. It also leads to deviancy, poor physical health, poor mental health, and use of other substances. And the last substance I'm going to talk about today is inhalants. So Inhalants are gases or fumes that can be inhaled from solvents for the purpose of getting high. Some examples would be, aerosol cans, spray paint cans. Kids use Sharpie pens. They smell chemical cleaners, anything that gives off that toxic odorous fume. They inhale it so they get a head rush. And along with marijuana, after alcohol and cigarettes, inhalants are the next most frequently used drug among middle childhood. And you might be wondering why. You might, not even really consider this when you're thinking about substances and abuse among middle childhood. But it's because that inhalants seem to be more easily accessible, easily administered, so easier to take, less noticeable, and then more affordable to young children, and therefore it's more used and abused frequently in middle childhood rather than late adolescence. A research sample showed that 4.2% of 8th graders reported using inhalants in the past 30 days, whereas compared to 2% from high school seniors. So there are a few effects of using inhalants. There's long-term use of other drugs. It can lead to the risk of becoming dependent on inhalants or other drugs. It can lead to pulmonary, cardiac, or blood toxicity and neurological damage. And I want to point out, if you haven't noticed, but a lot of these risks are the same. Long-term drug use, damage to the brain, damage to your organs, becoming dependent and leading to gateway drugs. And that's the whole problem, is substances aren't good. They lead to bad things. And so how do we prevent this? Well, there are a few prevention programs. The first I'm going to talk about is Raising Healthy Children. So this program, they provide the children with opportunities for involvement with positive role models. They focus on the students' academic, cognitive, and social skills. They give positive reinforcement for pre-social involvement and then deliver clear standards about substance use. And then the next program, which is probably more known across the United States, is the DARE program. So the DARE program aims to help prevent drug use in elementary, middle, and high school students. DARE improves decision making and attitudes towards drug use. And DARE also believes that if you can teach youth to make safe and responsible decisions, it will guide them to healthy choices not only about drugs, but across all parts of their lives. So, with that all being said, we have come to the conclusion of my presentation. So what we can learn and take away from this presentation is that the use and abuse of substances such as alcohol, cigarettes, marijuana, and inhalants, they all have a very risky and dangerous effect on children in the middle childhood stage of their life. Of course, they do have negative effects on adults as well, but really much more dangerous for children. And so that's why it's really important and imperative to have these drug programs so we can be able to educate and inform children, their parents, educators, and others about these dangerous effects so we as a community can help prevent the use of substances among children. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.